speed and mobility than M00. But most other problems were not overcome, including the cramped interior. The Maresal prototypes had progressively started to give up on the T60 chassis. M02 used a Rojifable chassis based on that of the T60, but enlarged and reinforced. It weighed less than M01 at around 6.4 tons. The engine, gearbox, suspension and electrics were the same as on M01. It used a Rogifer-designed pedal steering control system with a manual clutch and accelerator. Both M01 and M02 retained M00's armor thickness of 20 to 30 mm. M02's best improvement over M01 was a better gun mounting system, but the main problem of a cramped interior was yet to overcome. M03's components were identical to those of M02, but its chassis was again longer and wider than those of the former prototypes. It had entirely given up on the T60 chassis, but still used said tank's tracks. It weighed between 6.4 and 6.7 tons and had the thinnest armor of every prototype, at 10 mm overall. M03 was the first prototype to overcome the problem of its interior space being too narrow. All three prototypes had retained the T60's transmission. 43, 42, M04 worked on from November 1943 to January 1944. M04 was the first prototype to have given up on the 122mm howitzer in favor of the Romanian 75mm rear M1943 gun, which was possibly the most versatile gun of its class developed during World War II, according to author Mark Axworthy. Said gun had been in parallel development with the Maresal. M04's blueprints were presented to Hitler and influenced German Hetzer's development. The vehicle was fitted with a new 120 HP Hotchkiss H39 engine. It was tested at Sudiai in early February 1944 in the presence of German Lieutenant Colonels Vence and Haymann, delegates of the Waffenamt and OKH, respectively, who were impressed by the mobility of the Maresal and the viability of the novel design solution. They asked if the builders of M04 had previously designed armored vehicles. Upon receiving a negative reply, Vence commented that this accounted for the novelty of the vehicle. M04, which was also known by the codename CD-43, used the same optics as the previous prototypes, but improved with an IOR panoramic telescope. It had a new half-hexagon shape. Its armor produced by the rear works was 10 to 20 mm thick, but Vence proposed its thickness to be increased to 30 mm, according to a report by Colonel Ardavitsky. Haymann, on the other hand, disagreed about increasing armor thickness, since it would have decreased mobility, which he believed was the tank. M04 prototype. The casemate plates are most likely of metal painted in white, giving the wrong impression of a wooden mock-up. Side skirts may be of wood. Destroyer's key feature. Romanian officials stated they will attempt materializing Vence's proposal after testing a Soviet 45mm gun's firepower at the Sudiai polygon. The vehicle, along with the next prototypes, retained M03's pedal steering system. A new transmission from Hotchkiss was used. The only remaining T60 component were the tracks, widened to 26 centimeters, everything else having been produced by Rogifer. The prototype's weight was of 7.5 tons. M04's frontal armor plate had an angle of 25 degrees, its horizontal gun traverse was of 15 degrees, which the two German officials described as certainly sufficient due to the ease of turning the vehicle. Gun elevation was of -5 degree forward /+10 degree, also considered sufficient. The vehicle carried 45 rounds of ammunition, Its speed, low profile and high cell velocity made it possible to fire at closer ranges and with more accuracy, lowering ammunition consumption. 82, 83, 84, M05 and M06. By March 1944, the Romanian design team was working on the M05 and M06 prototypes, the final series of prototypes, which were to be the basis for the serial production vehicles. They were largely Romanian-built, the main remaining foreign components having been the Hotchkiss engine and gearbox, a nuked suspension, a German Telefunken U.K.W.E.E10W radio and part of the sights. M05 was completed in May 1944 and was tested in the same month. M05 prototype during trials. Notice that it is wider than M00 and M04 and does not use side skirts. In June 1944, the M05 prototype proved to be superior to the German Stu G3G, after competing against it for testing purposes in the presence of Marshal Antonicu. The Maresal performed best in firing, speed, handling, slope management and obstacle clearance. It was much praised by the attending German officers. From the 24th of July to the 21st of August, M05 underwent further confirmatory tests which were then interrupted by a failure in the gun mounting. By the 23rd of August 1944, when King Michael's coup took place, M05 had completed its proving program with the exception of its endurance trial. On the 21st of September 1944, test firings and endurance trials were resumed with good results. M05 retained many components of M04, but differed greatly in shape, having been wider and having stopped using side skirts. It also used the new KD suspension instead of the T60S1, as well as the new German radio. The transmission was also new, having been built by Rogifer. The 10-20mm thick armor was produced by Boller, now Boller at home. The prototype weighed 8.5 tons and had an appreciable maximum speed of 50 km per hour on road and 35 km per hour off-road. Its secondary armament had consisted of two submachine guns shot through firing ports on each of the vehicle's side armor plates. M05 had the same gun elevation as M04. Its upper frontal armor plate was angled at 25 degrees, while the upper side and rear plates had angles of 33 and 30 degrees, respectively. 85, 86. Despite being praised by the Germans, M05 had also faced criticism, most notably from General Vasile Tănăsescu and Vice Admiral Alexandru Gheorghiu, RO. Both had stated that the prototype had poor size-on, that the exaggerated angling of the armor affected the crew's performance. 9. M06 was the last prototype and the only one to have a crew of 3. The third crew member had the commander role, while the two others had retained the roles they had on the previous prototypes: driver, aimer, gunner and loader radio operator. 87. M06's development had begun simultaneously with that of M05, to which it was very similar. Its 10 to 20 mm thick armor was produced by RIA under license from Boller. Mark Axworthy describes M06 as being identical in characteristics to M05 apart from the extracker EU member. 58. According to Czech historian Ivo Pijok, CZ, M06 was identical to M05, but with technological changes in the gun mount. 88. Series production. The serial production vehicles were based on the M05 and M06 prototypes. While the first 200 were planned to be M05 copies, the next 800 would have differed from each other, being based on M06 while also incorporating lessons learned from Series 0, thus getting progressively modified. They were to be equipped with anti-magnetic concrete and a multicolored camouflage scheme. 58, 89. The vehicles were to use the 75mm rear M1943 gun, or, in case not enough said guns would have been produced in time, the Romanian produced 75mm Vickers rear anti-aircraft gun, adapted as an AT gun, or another AT gun such as a German 1.48. Other AT guns available in Romania's inventory at the time included the German 7.5 cm Pak 40 or the captured Soviet 76mm ZS 3.58, the German 8.8 cm Flak 37 anti-aircraft gun Maresal available, and was even proposed to be mounted as an AT gun on the Takama 2.90, 91, a top-mounted 7.92mm Rheinmetall machine gun for anti-aircraft defense and fending off enemy infantry. Maresal considered as secondary armament, apart from the two 9mm light machine guns that were also used on the M05 prototype. 89, 92. The almost completed Series 0 of 10 vehicles, that was based on the M05 prototype. 15, 93, used 120 HP Hotchkiss engines. The next 40 Maresals, Series 1, would have used the same type of engine. Those first 50 vehicles were the only ones to use Hotchkiss engines, since their French factory was bombarded by Thiles, with only 50 engines being evacuated. 94. The next vehicles were to use 160 HP Praga engines, which were also to be produced in Romania under license. 94. Or operated 220 HP Tatra engines supplied by Germany. 58, 89. 122mm M1938, M30, howitzer, used on the first prototypes the 75mm rear M1943, which was considered one of the best 75mm AT guns of its era. 47, was used on later prototypes and serial production vehicles. Comparison of prototypes and serial production vehicles. 95, 96, 97, 83, 98, 99. Vehicle Rewarmamentar chassis weight engine M002122mm M1938, M30, 20-30mm T606.7 T85 HP Ford V8 M012122mm M1938, M30, 20-30mm T60 plus or minus 6.7 T120-140 HP Big M022122mm M1938, M30, 20-30mm Romanian build plus or minus 6.4 T120-140 HP Big M032122mm M1938, M30, 10mm Romanian build 6.4-6.7 T120-140 HP Big M04275mm rear M19431020 Romanian build 7.5 T120 HP Hotchkiss H39 M05275mm rear M19431020 Romanian build 8.5 T120 HP Hotchkiss H39 M06375mm rear M1943110-20mm Romanian build plus or minus 8.5 T120 HP Hotchkiss H39 serial prod. 2/375mm rear M1943 or others, see above. 10-20mm Romanian build plus or minus 8.5 T120 HP Hotchkiss H39/160 HP Praga AC/220 HP Tatra T103. Self-propelled howitzer. A planned self-propelled howitzer variant of the Maresal existed, whose role was to be supporting infantry. 48, 16. Its blueprints were presented by the Romanians to German Lieutenant Colonels Vence and Hayman, who according to Colonel Ardavitsky found them judiciously prepared. 48. Lieutenant Colonel Podgiersky was the first one to propose it in autumn 1943. 16. The vehicle would have carried a howitzer of either 122 or 150 mm. In addition to high explosive shells, it would also have been equipped with heat ammunition to combat tanks effectively. Due to its bigger size, this variant's crew was to be increased to 3 or even 4 members. The vehicle was to have a goal elevation of 23 degrees, comparable to the 25 degrees of the similar German Sturminfanterieschutz 33B, allowing it to fire up to distances of 6.5 km. 48. The variant was never produced, because the tank destroyer version was given priority. It was taken into consideration to produce it in case not enough 75 mm rear anti-tank guns would have been produced and team for the tank destroyer variant. 48. Germany, however, had built a similar vehicle based on the Hetzer chassis and armed with a 15 cm Signal 33 howitzer. The 15 cm Schweres Infanterieschutz 33/2 SF, Aufjagdpanzer 38, T. Anti-aircraft vehicle. Romanian variant. Another variant of the Maresal planned by the Romanians was that of a self-propelled anti-aircraft gun, SPAG. Just like the self-propelled howitzer version, this vehicle was first proposed around October 1943 by Lieutenant Colonel Gierskew. It was to be armed with multiple anti-aircraft guns of a caliber from 20 to 37 mm and was to be less numerous than the tank destroyer and self-propelled howitzer. Artists' impression of a German Flakpanzer version, based on other turreted Flakpanzers variants. 16. Anti-aircraft guns possessed by Romania at the time were the 20 mm Ehrlichon cannon and the 20 mm Gusloff, both delivered by Germany, as well as the 3.7 cm Flak 37 built under license in Romania. 100. German Flakpanzer variant. German planned to buy several Maresal chassis for the Wehrmacht and arm them with 37 mm Rheinmetall anti-aircraft guns. Never materialized, since the royal coup d'état had made Romania defect from the Axis powers. 14. 58. 35. Command vehicle version. Squads of 4 Maresals were planned to be used in combat. Every squad was to consist of 3 tank destroyers and 1 command vehicle equipped with machine guns, a flamethrower and a radio station. This vehicle was to have a crew of 3, a squad commander, a driver and a gunner. The commander was to be seated centrally and observe the battlefield through a device that could be opened and shut. The device had a C100 mm wide opening that allowed the commander to observe the surroundings at 360 degrees through a 10 cm thick bulletproof layer of plexiglass. 81. Operators. Kingdom of Romania main operator. Used only for testing and crew training, having never seen action because of the Soviets stopping its production. Soviet Union. Probably, after October 1944, the vehicles were probably captured by the Soviets, who had occupied Romania. 2. Nazi Germany, planned acquisition to build a Flakpanzer version, see above. See also. Romanian armored fighting vehicle production during World War II. Tacom T-60 Romanian tank destroyer also based on the T-60 chassis, like the first two Maresal prototypes. Comparable vehicles. Germany, Hetzer Stu G3 Stu G4 Jagdpanzer 4. Italy, Semovent the 75/34 Semovent the 75/46. Soviet Union, Su-85. United Kingdom, elect.
Good. Let's stop. The video splits in 20 seconds. It starts to get dark. I will go down and shopping a bit food and chips. So that was this old tank